So to start off with, what is Git? Git is a distributed version control system, and a key word in that is distributed. You may have used distributed version control systems before. Subversion is a very popular one, and there are quite a number of others that work like that. You may also have used a client-server-based version control system. Team Foundation Server is an option there. Source Vault is another. And these are very similar on the surface, but their differences run fairly deep. With your client-server version control systems, what you're looking at is the server is the only piece that contains all of the different versions, the check-ins and things like that. Each of the clients maintains what the current version that the developer is working on. But if they want to see maybe rollbacks or see what the diffs are or that kind of thing, everything has to go to the server and then be coordinated out through there. This makes it very useful for large teams because there's a known state and you're always working with that. This means that if you're having a build server that's checking in, there's one system of truth. There's one moment where everything that's on the server is the current version and there's no discussion. What a distributed version control system does, though, is it allows you to work with teams that are more flexible or more fluid, depending upon how you want to describe it. And what that means is that each repository, and I say that specifically because they're not clients, each location has its own repository, has the full version of that project, whatever's been checked in. So you have your commits, you have your branches, you have everything, and each one of those locations, each one of those repositories gathers up as much of the state as is possible for it to know. This means that if you need to do check-ins, if you need to do commits, if you need to make builds, any location can make its own version of truth, the definitive one for doing distributions, for doing builds, for all of those kind of things. Now, this means that you can actually have situations where different locations have different versions of the truth. There may be different edits. And what Git is kind of focused on is making sure that eventually all those are resolved and somebody gets to make a choice. That being said, each person can make their own choice with their own repositories, and putting them together can be a little bit of fun. We'll cover that more in detail in the advanced area. The next point is it's usable with any type of file. If you're taking this course, you're most likely a developer, but that doesn't mean that only source control can go into that it's not just source control for your project. Keeping track of your logos, your creative assets, maybe your documentation, any types of files that you're working with, put them into your repository, keep track of those, because your source isn't the only thing that changes through your project. As a matter of fact, as things go forward, as projects evolve, even the configuration information is becoming more and more critical to get into version control. So note that that's why this is a version control system and not a source control system. It is platform agnostic, mostly. There are some differences as we go through the installation and the functionality. I'll try and point out where things are a little bit different, but know that the core functionality with Git works the same if you're working on Windows, if you're working on a Mac, if you're working on some Linux distribution, if you're working on, say, a Raspberry Pi. All of these can actually have Git available to them and are available to be working. There's actually, as we go through some of the tools, there's actually the ability to use Git inside a browser to work with some of your files there. So it's kind of interesting that it goes through. It's very platform agnostic. The only thing that as a Windows developer you may need to look at is actually some of the operating system issues, which is the biggest of which is whether you have a line feed or carriage return line feed. And again, we'll talk about that as we do the installation and what you need to be looking at. And finally, it's widely adopted and used. It's really impressive. Git started out in about 2005 for some open source projects. Actually, Linus Torvald of Linux fame needed something, so that's where it comes from. But it's actually grown and expanded very, very rapidly in the past 9+ years. What's happened is that it's been adopted by lots of different groups because of its lightweight capabilities. It's been adopted because of its platform agnostic capabilities of being able to work cross platforms, not having to worry so much about the clients. And one of the nice things about that is that means there's a lot of tools to work with it. So we'll be working through a lot of the command line tools, which is the native way you work with Git, but we'll also kind of touch on some of the additional extensions that have happened, and even some of the development environment integrations. So when you look at that, that's a valuable capability. But then there's also the concept of a lot of websites are now using it to be able to pull in source to share it with, to actually have a repository that others can synchronize with. It's not a server, it's another repository that others can synchronize with. Things like GitHub are very popular for showing off your code or hosting it. It's pretty much taken over from where SourceForge used to be. You see things like Microsoft Azure. The rebranding just happened, so I need to make sure and use the right terms. Able to pull in builds and deploy them on virtual machines through using Git. So there's a lot of different integration points that you'll see, and there's a lot of different hosters of different services that integrate in with Git and are very friendly towards it. So one of the things that always comes up in here is why use version control at all? If you're a longtime developer, I hope you'll kind of skip past this area because I hope you already know the answer. But for a lot of people, there seems to be some discussion around this. I've been in development long enough that I really don't have a discussion around this, but we're going to talk about that. Even if you're a single developer, you would really benefit from using a version control system. One of the biggest challenges that often happens is that as a single developer, you work through things, you get busy with it, with various functionality, you kind of work your way into a corner and then kind of swirl around trying to work out what's going on until you've got the code so changed that you're not really sure how to get back to a known state. With version control systems, being able to roll back to a known good state is incredibly valuable. You can actually go through, you can put in different changes, try them out. If it doesn't work, just say revert back. Very, very useful. This is the one killer feature that as a single developer, you still need to put all of your projects in version control. Patching and release versions. One of the nice things about having this is that if you've got people that are using older versions of your builds, if they're actually going through and find something that maybe you need to fix right now and not go forward, but you've already changed some of the pieces, but to go back and make a patch for older versions of your code base is incredibly useful as well. Being able to roll it out there, be able to know what those release versions actually were. So if you've changed some features, if you maybe changed some interfaces and problems show up, being able to jump back in, know what's going on, and then move back to where you were and keep working on those new features is incredibly useful as well. And then the final is syncing between development environments. Some people still use the one laptop or one desktop to do all their dev on. Myself, I move between a number of different environments for clients, for different mobility answers, and sometimes just for different form factors. And being able to have my same code base move through all my different machines, my virtual machines, my hardware machines, and being able to pass it around becomes very, very valuable and keeps me sane. So even by myself, I can show up as multiple developers, and actually keeping all those resources in sync becomes very valuable for me. And that's if I'm just a single developer. If I'm in a multi-developer project, and this is quite common as well, this allows you to coordinate between the developers. And this isn't even as something where you have a project manager or a build master, things like that. Just having someone able to contribute code in, be able to say, I've got it, I've been playing with your code, I found a cooler way to do this. Allow them to be able to submit that to the prime code base for you to review it and say, no, that's not really the direction I want to. Or, hey, that's a great idea and it's something I don't need to write. Being able to pull that in and have it part of your code base is hugely useful. It's not necessary, but it's something that if you want to keep two devs or more devs in sync, it becomes very helpful. Coordination between platforms. Again, if you've got somebody who may be working on your assets on a platform that you're not on, maybe they have Photoshop on something on a Windows platform and you're working on an Android app, so that it has to move back and forth. All of those kind of things of allowing people to work in the tools that they want to, on the platforms they want to, but get you the assets you need and in a controlled manner. And then the ability to control release contents. Being able to come in and say, we've got a branch that's being worked on, but it's not ready to go out yet. We've got these pieces that can come in, and that it should be part of the build, and be able to coordinate what's being worked on, what's actually going out in the release, what's good to go, what's not, becomes hugely valuable again, or so you can get those builds out early, but get them out with just what you need to have in the builds, and not with things that may cause problems later on down the line. So hopefully that shows you version control. Even if it's just you, use version control. It's very valuable. If it's you and some other folks, it makes it even more important about making sure that you're not stepping on each other, that you can merge changes in together, that you can know where everybody's coming into, and you can know who made that breaking change and get them back in there to fix it. So lots of good reasons there. And so we've talked about this. We've talked about the different types of version control. Why is Git so popular? It's lightweight. It doesn't require a lot of install. It doesn't require a lot of configuration. You can do a lot with it, but it is something that getting up and going and just doing some simple operations is not going to drive you mad, or it's not going to require you to do a lot of work. This course is going to take you pretty deep into it. After the first basics area, the little 30-minute section about actually working with Git, you're going to know pretty much everything you need to know in normal operations. We'll go into advanced, which has some of the more sophisticated ways to use Git. If it's just you or a small team, most times you may not need that, or in day-to-day operations. So getting started with Git and getting it working is super easy to do. It's super easy to get devs of various levels on the same page with using it, and it's one of those pieces that you don't have a lot of infrastructure overhead putting it in place. It's also widely accepted. Generally, if you're working with devs, if you need to coordinate with someone, they're probably going to have a good idea about Git. They may not know all the details. They may not be the most sophisticated user, but they can actually get in. They can get something up and running. They can pull down your source tree and get moving. So that means that you don't have to have a lot of work making yourself understood, or to be honest with you, it's not a challenging argument. So while people you're coordinating with tend to use other items more, Git is generally an acceptable choice for just about everybody. It has the capabilities they need. Again, it mentioned it's easily adopted. Getting someone up to speed on it, getting a quick build, getting it in there, even if they're not using Git to begin with, you can get them going in 15, 20 minutes just to get something up and going. Now, if you're a coordinator, it's going to take a little bit more time than that, but again, it's going to be fairly simple. If you've ever set up, say, a Team Foundation server project, it takes a while to get everything in place. This doesn't worry with that. It's not doing things like release cycles or sprints or all the loading or dev poker or anything like that. All it's doing is making sure that you have a known state. You can do checkpoints on them, and then everybody's seeing eventually the same version of the truth. So very easily adopted. Broad vendor support. So things like Visual Studio, Eclipse tie into Git very, very easily, give you an easy point-and-click interface to making sure everything's okay, being able to give you reports, give you information off of it, and then most of the hosters, source control hosters, and most of the repositories online speak Git very well, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, with all that broad vendor support, there's a lot of tools out there. Generally, any way that you want to look at Git, there's a tool to help you with that. And then finally, there are lots of websites that you can go to that can be repositories that can act as servers for you. But you don't have to have any of that. If you just want to connect with somebody back and forth, you've got that capability. There's no need to do extensive infrastructure. You're very, very good to go. So if you need something very sophisticated, if you need lots of planning and velocity reports and things like that, not really what Git does, but if you're just looking for something that gives you that distributed version control, make sure that you can always know what your versions are, where your branches are, what's going on. Super, super easy to set up, super, super simple to get running with. And that's why we're going to be looking at Git, showing you how to make all of this stuff happen for your projects.